Chess friends and chess lovers, we are at war. It's currently the 12th round of the World Chess Championship between Liren and Domoraju Gukesh. And before the conclusion of this round, we know that Gukesh is leading the match 6-5. So, with two rounds remaining after round 12, Ting is sort of in a must-win situation to try and take the game to the 14th round. If he does not win, the 12th round, the game could very well end in round 13. So, Ding's back's against the wall here. In this game, Ding had the white pieces, and he started. And the commentators and analysts thought that he would revert back to his c4 nature, as this is his mainstay opening. He's a specialist in the c4 lines. After c4, we get e6, e6, g3, d5, bishop to g2, knight to f6, knight to f3, and d4. And we in Catalan territory. Ding Liren is known as a Catalan specialist. Played it before it was even trendy and cool. Him and Kramnik, great proponents of this whole opening in its entirety, right? To the point where Magnus even looked it up and studied it intensely for his match against none other than Jan Nepomniachtchi. So we have a neo, and if we um Gukesh does go for d4, but it was anticipated that perhaps he might strike with c5 or bishop e7, keep it simpler. Because now after d4, yes, we are in prep and he's still up in time here. Castles, knight to c6, and e3. The advised move here is to go e5, and this is the reason why we play knight f6, knight c6, to keep guard of the e5 pawn thrust, right? That's e4, e5, and to support this pawn. But after e3, Gukesh goes bishop to e7. Still nothing wrong here, but we'll see how his prep kind of leads him into some trouble. After bishop e7, then, Ding says, no, I'm not going to capture right away, even though, yes, it is a top recommended move. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let you, I'm going to see what you do. And then from there, I'll build my attack. So very prophylactic play here, Ding playing. So D takes E, and now we have bishop takes E. And after that, we have E5. So if we assess this position, then um, you could argue White's achieved what they wanted to after the first 8 moves, right? They've got fluidity. The bishop has got nice control over the file, as we'll see how important this bishop is later on, this dark square bishop. The light square bishop's exercising nice spatial control on the h1, a8 diagonal. King is in safety. Ideas of rook swinging out, knight to c3, and rook coming to d1 are all on the cards here. All right, let's see how Gukesh deals with it. 3 and castles. After castles, then we have rook to e1. Ting just preparing his rooks on the e file. h6 then by Gukesh, and here we have a3. And here, perhaps then, after a5, it could be argued that maybe Gukesh could have went for an idea of knight to g4, though also not one of the top moves. Nonetheless, it does put pressure on this bishop and ask questions. So let's say after knight to g4, all right, bishop drops to c1, and this is what Ding also said in his analysis. Yeah, the bishop drops to c1, and okay, yeah, evaluatively, yes, so white is doing better, but optically and stylistically, we'd prefer black maybe, because after that we have move of bishop c5 attacking on f2, and then we'd have to go knight to e4 to defend, and then bishop to g4, and the game just continues, right? But all that was dodged, and Gukesh decided to go for a5. After a5, then we have h3, and h3 then inadvertently stops this knight to g4 idea, or bishop to g4 idea, putting pressure on this knight. So we'll see now, after h3 is played, if we assess this, just got to hydrate. Ding is signaling and telling Gukesh, we are not trading off any pieces anytime soon. No minors are going off anytime soon, and of course the majors as well, because I mean, they're still on the 8th rank and the 1st rank. But now his intent here, as early as move 12, to tell Gukesh we are fighting. because the knight cannot be captured anytime soon with any pressure from the bishop here on g4, as well as this bishop cannot be threatened anymore with the knight coming to g4. So we are in for some sort of a fight. Bishop to e6. After the bishop e6, we have another waiting move by the king to h2, which, yes, it is suggested by the computer as one of the top moves, but not expected, right? We'd expect maybe preparations to go queen to d2 and rook a to d1 to prepare this d4 thrust, right? Not immediately, of course, because this pawn would just hang. Okay, king to h2 and rook to b8. And this move was a bit questionable. You'll see the bar even going up a bit there, because thereafter now, after a5 was played, it must be mentioned. A5, yes, if gets to A4, takes away space for the pawn to go to B3. But in A5 being played, it allows knight to B5 ideas because A6 cannot be played anymore, right? So there is some drawback to A5 and now rook B8, which is quite questionable. Perhaps the intention after this, after the rook B8, not even knight A7, because the bishop can just capture. But perhaps it's somewhere down the line to go 94 maybe and b5 ideas. That could be a possibility, or knight d4, queen d7, and b5 perhaps. It's just a bit slow. Instead of knight b5, we have queen to c2 by Ding. Ding then also preparing just to get his rook to the d file, put pressure on this queen indirectly, and once again get the d4 thrust. We'll see how this is the hotspot, the central square in this game. The whole fight, at least for majority of the game, revolves around the d4 square, and we'll find out why very soon. We have rook d8, Ding goes knight to b5, furthering pressure on c7 and cannot be kicked away. Right, this knight also doesn't really have that much squares. You can't go to a7 as mentioned because you could just capture it this way. Can't go there, you just capture there. Cannot. You could go to the center right now, but there's just not enough defenders black would have for the knight. It just end up losing the pawn. So if knight d4, for example, well, it's just bad. This pawn's hanging. You could even capture here. So if we went for the worst move here, take, e takes, well, knight b takes d4, and you are just up a comfortable pawn. The bishop would have to go back to c8, which is very uncomfortable. Let's say, for instance, you don't drop the bishop back, the light squared bishop back, and you maybe go bishop to f8. Well, it's even worse now because there you're capturing with the rook, exchanging more pieces, and you have another pawn island. So you'd have one, two, three, four pawn islands. Your pawn is dislocated from the chain. This pawn is weak. Ideas of rook e1 here is coming in, putting more pressure on the pawn. It's just bad. Knight to d4 ideas, possibly after queen c3. Horrible, horrible, not a nice position for black to play. You could safely resign if this had to happen. At that level, at least, yeah? Okay, knight to b5 then. We have bishop to f5. And here Ding plays a super classy move. Of course, you cannot go d4, you just hang your queen. Rook to d1, adding some more defense to this d3 pawn because it is doubly attacked. But here the real classy move comes in. After knight to d7, Gukesh was under a lot of pressure. He thought for a while with this move. Um, and then after that, we had queen to d2. Played instantaneously by Ding. There's even, after queen d2, you can see it lasering on h6, even ideas of capturing on h6 later on. But the main reason behind queen d2 is to, again, just go for this thrust. Queen d3 was fine as well. Both of them were fine. But we'll see how this queen does a dance as the game progresses, which is really beautiful by Ding. So bishop to g6 and d4 finally is played. The thrust is there. You cannot capture here. You'd just be lost if you captured immediately. Because thereafter we have e takes d, we have bishop f4, and you just cannot really hold on to c7. It's just a bloodbath coming. You have the knight attacking as well as the bishop. If you really wanted to try with bishop to d6, well, that's okay. You're just ending up bleeding. C takes d. You first start with a check, queen takes, and then finally bishop to d6. Positionally, you are outclassed here. The 8th rank pieces are stuck at the back. There's this dislocation between the pieces. There's no harmony between black's pieces. You cannot jump to c5, for example. Well, you could, you can't, because the bishop is on c5 capturing. And this bishop's really strong there. You could even go ideas like c5 and just further solidify your bishop there. And then you just connect on e1, get your rook to e1, apply pressure. We'll see this game. So queen to d2, bishop g6, d4, and we have e4 then by Gukesh. And Ding immediately plays knight to g1, a top class move. It is said that in chess, some of the hardest moves to find are the knight going backwards. But in this position, it is quite clear that that is the only viable square it could go to, right? If you have to move it, you wouldn't go to h4 because you would just end up losing a clean pawn with bishop takes on h4, g takes, and queen takes on h4. So knight to g1 then. We have knight to b6. Gukesh really just trying to untangle his pieces, trying to maybe put pressure on c4, but that doesn't do much as Ding just goes queen to c3. Ding's queen has been doing a dance, as we mentioned here. Um, there, and back, right? So classy. Queen to c3 then defends the pawn, but also has its own dangers in mind, right? And we'll soon see what they entail. Only move here was f5 to keep the game going really for Gukesh, which is a really hard find. Um, but not to be the case. Because it also doesn't feel natural to play, right? F5, you feel you're weakening these squares, you're softening up the e6 square, you're opening up your king. And the thing is, when in complex positions as humans, psychologically, we just want to simplify the position, right? And that's why we get this knight b6 a bishop f6 move because it seemingly puts pressure on d4 and it's kind of opens up some files for your pieces. But positionally, it's not really sound because after queen to c2, the queen moving again, um, we see now there's extra pressure on the e4 pawn, and after a4, Ding just goes knight to e2, further cementing his knight, defending on d4. And the idea of the knight is to come to f4 to put pressure on the bishop on g6. Well, in this position, knight to a5 or a7 were the only moves to keep the game somewhat intact. But after bishop to f4, it is now just a solid, stable advantage for Ding, and the reason why is because after knight f4, there's just too much pressure on this bishop now. The best move is to capture. Let's say because this bishop's under attack. Let's say you don't capture. Let's say you move the bishop to h7. What happens then? Well, now Ding shifting his attack to the other side of the board, right? With c5. And after c5, knight to d7, you can see how cramped the position is. The knight is relinquishing the defense of the a4 pawn. It just captures, right? And that's really bad, really bad for black here. He has to play some strange moves to keep it going. Best move, natural move intuitively is to go rook a8. You just drop your queen back to c2, knight to a7. It's some strange moves that Ding even recommended that he said Kuki should have to play this somewhere in this move order to keep some chances, but it's just bad. You just drop. You can even capture or go back. It's because positionally you're in such a bad, cramped up position here. Your piece has got no fluidity, they're not attacking anything, and this would just be crushing for Ding. After knight f4, then Gukesh does capture and Ding captures back immediately. Now more pressure again on the c7 square. Well, after rook to c8, then we have again queen to c3, the dancing queen by Ding. Just defending, more defense here. And after queen to c3, we have knight to b8. And yeah, the cleanest win is just knight a7. You're picking up a piece, and that's it. But Ding goes even stronger, and he goes d5. And this is where Ding said knight to a6 would be recommended here to keep defense there. But it's just really difficult to play because here Gukesh was already under a lot of time pressure, almost a move a minute that had to be made in this position to reach time control. So we have queen to d7, and now the position just falling apart. Ding plays super accurately. d6 and c5 is played immediately. After c5, not the problem. Uh, Ding just goes knight to c7, knight to c7 then is attacking the rook as well as, excuse me guys, my throat is a bit ticklish. After knight to c7 then, we have rook to f8. And rook to f8 now is relinquishing all defense of the square of this pawn. And we can see there's a double attack there. And this e file will very soon open up, right? After rook to f8, we have bishop takes e4, knight to c6, not a problem. Ding just drops back, playing precisely. And the reason for the bishop dropping back is to open up for the rook to come to e2, e7 eventually. So rook to d8 then doesn't do much. Ding just says, okay, I'm dropping my knight back to d5. It's important here to capture because if not, if there's no capture, let's say you go knight to c8 here. Well, now Ding has more tactics. Uh, Bishop takes h6, g takes, and now simple knight to f6 check, forking the king and the queen. How beautiful is that? So the tactics are all in Ding's favor. After knight to d6, we have knight takes d5, c takes d5, and now knight to b8. And we see Ding is just up two clean pawns with a lot of compensation. There's not much Gukesh can do here. Rook to c8 was tried, and just simply queen to d4, knight to a6, and rook to e7. Rook is on the seventh heaven, beautiful. Even if Ding didn't have these two pawns or was even in position, this rook being there and this pawn being there and this pawn is just so much compensation and strength for Ding. And his pieces are really active and activated, right? You can see the rooks on the open file, this rook's there, this bishop's operating there, this bishop's keeping defense there. The queen is in the center, spidering iron all sides. A windmill queen, really beautiful. You should draw a star for this queen because she's a star. You see that star? Yeah, okay. But it's nice though because there's a cosmos in the background. You see, guys, we producing nice graphics for you. Rook to e7, 5. This move was played um, with Gukesh having under 5 minutes left. After queen to b5, just simply d7. Bishop to f1 was also good, asking the question here, attacking the queen. And the knight by d7 is simpler. And then we had rook to c4. And in this position, uh, Ding even had a sacrifice. He could have given up his queen temporarily and just went rook to e8, and it's unstoppable. You cannot stop promoting of this queen. The promotion after queen to c5, you just go queen to d8, and you are up a clean rook. But Ding decided not to go for that, and he just played queen to e3, continuing the attack on the e file, the battle there. Rook to c2 doesn't do that much. Ding says, I'm just going bishop d6. Uh, Discovering, keeping an eye on that rook as well, and getting ready for promotion anyway. But after that, we have f6, and Gukesh here crumbles after Ding finds the brilliant, not that. Rook takes f7, g7, and it was in this position on move number 39 before the time control that Gukesh Damaraju resigned. And the reason why is because after king takes, this comes with a discovery on f8. You're just capturing. After the king captures, you just promote to a new queen and you up 8 points material, you up a full queen, and mate is to follow very soon. Let's say king to g8, not the problem. Queen e to e7 check, bishop to f7, uh, queen to f6, king to h7, and you just go king h, queen h8, checkmate. So Ding bounces back in game 12. This is reminiscent of his bounce comeback against Nepo that he had in the last World Championship. In game 12 was down 6-5, came back to draw, score 6 apiece. We have 2 rounds left. Anything can happen. Do comment down below who you guys think is walking away with this World Championship. It's anybody's game right now. If you really like the content, guys, please do consider dropping a like. Mentioned, drop down your comments. Let's engage. We are approaching a very uh, storyteller, beautiful, uh, climatic uh, ending, a beautiful twist in this tale. How Ding has come back from the ashes time and again. It's his fourth time that he's been behind in a world championship match, and he's come back and redeemed himself. But guys, I'll leave you for now. Have a great day ahead, and as mentioned, drop a comment below who you think will win this, and do like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Yeah, take care.